Hey guys, what's up? I'm Karis. Welcome to Fix Your Shitty Movement. So, last Fix Your Shitty Movement, we talked about the shoulders, and more specifically, overhead pressing movements, and also how many people are not actually able to overhead press safely just yet. And so I got the questions about how do we warm up the shoulders. The uncomfortable reality is that it's not usually your shoulders that are the problem. Often the problem is lack of spinal stability. So remember, in my school of thought, tightness does not happen randomly. Tightness happens in an effort for the body to find stability. Stability because some muscle group is not sufficiently doing its job. That's my school of thought. So in that vein, the spine itself will actually become rigid in an effort to find stability because the surrounding abdominal muscles, or in the case that I'm talking about, especially the muscles around the shoulder girdle, are not doing their job sufficiently to stabilize the spine. So remember, the spine is your central nervous system and literally your life. So anytime that there's a sense of danger to the central nervous system in particular, that's when the body will kind of lock up. And if you've ever hurt your lower back and been basically like incapacitated from it, that's usually where that comes from. Anyway, so the thoracic spine, I mentioned this last time. Most of the issues with your shoulders, obviously I'm not talking about like trauma or something, although it does, they're buddies. We'll get into that in a second. If your thoracic spine is very rigid, what you're gonna do often is move your shoulders in a way, and your low back actually, that is going to put unnecessary strain on them. And that's normally what happens with the shoulders. We're actually putting we're moving them way beyond the range of motion that they're supposed to be in, because actually most of the stuff your shoulders do is stabilize, at least from a lifting perspective. So instead of using them to stabilize, we're using them to move around, right? I see this in the deadlift all the time. This is something I'm really trying to work on people with, because in your deadlift, for example, I'll use that because this is what I've been nagging about people all day about. You'll see people who deadlift and do this at the top and then spill forward, right? So their shoulder is not packed, meaning their lat's not packed. So all the weight of the bar, whatever that is literally pulling on the soft tissue. And remember, if you go back to my lats deadlift fix your shitty movement, I address the same thing. That's why back rounding in the deadlift is something that you should probably avoid doing, because to me it's usually an indication that you're not fully packing your lats. So if that's something that you do in your deadlift, this is for you. But it's really for all of us, because the issue that people have in the bench press with their arch, for example, people don't arch sufficiently in their thoracic spine. Where's the easiest place to compensate? Your lower back, because you're already arched there. So people's abdomens will be way up here and their shoulders aren't actually protected at all, okay? So my point is that all of the attention that you're giving to your shoulders, right? Like I already talked about the bro, like plate jerk-offs or whatever the fuck they do, waving their arms around, do absolutely nothing, because they aren't actually addressing the problem. Do they warm up the shoulder complex itself? Sure. Is that helpful? Kind of. But if you're not getting your thoracic spine in the position it needs to be in, you're gonna put a lot of undue strain on not just your shoulders, but your wrists and your elbows. This is a reason why a lot of people don't do well with low bar squatting, because they don't have the thoracic extension to have the bar in the right position, so they end up somewhere like this, right? So tons of pressure on the front of the shoulder, elbows, wrists. I'm one of them. This is one of the main reasons why I've resisted low bar squatting as much as I have, but it's also the reason why I've really tried to get better at it, because all it is highlighting my deficiencies. I don't have good thoracic extension, and that's gonna fuck me over not only in my squat, but in my bench and my deadlift. So anytime that I feel strain in my elbows or my shoulders, either after benching or, recently after my neck injury, deadlifting too, because I was doing this shit, right? But in my squat, like my elbows hurt a lot. Why? Again, because I'm putting my arm in a bad position, right? That's not like, I don't know how else to say other than bad. It's not a good loaded position, right? Because if it's here, it's just hanging on this little ass joint, not meant to support all that weight, as opposed to my lat, which is supposed to support a lot of fucking weight. So when you're learning how to do these positions, I'm just going to assume that it's like powerlifting or something, instead of being like, I don't like low bar squatting and I'm not going to do it, for example, you should say, damn, I really need to fucking work on my thoracic extension so that I can save my shoulders. I've mentioned it before, and I'll say it again, powerlifting should only improve your mobility. Only in the things that you need to do with powerlifting. You don't need to put your fucking forehead on your knees or whatever the fuck. There's no reason for you to be that flexible, right? You need to be able to keep a nice long spine in a deep squat, right? That's the kind of mobility we're after, because there's literally no reason to be in any other position, okay? So how do you work on your thoracic mobility? Well, like I mentioned, the stiffness occurs, or the rigidness in your spine occurs, because the musculature around the spine are not working properly to make your spine feel supported. We don't want a rigid spine. We want the muscles around the spine to hold the spine in like a pillar, right? So bracing, dead bug, shit like that, the not fun stuff, but here's the catch. You have to do it right. So I'm gonna start with the plank because I have a whole thing with dead bug. It's actually gonna be an inappropriate cue next week. It's one of my more inappropriate ones, and also probably my most effective one. So what happens is when people are doing stuff like dead bug, they're not actually in neutral spine. They're usually in this fucking position, right? Because if they want to keep their back flat on the mat, the easiest way for them to do that is to use their hip flexors or their rectus abdominis or pecs to round the spine, and there, look, and now I have a nice flat back. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. You have to create the flat back in a neutral spine position, and that means you have to expand all the way around here to create that stability without overflexing your hip or shrugging your shoulders forward. Can you do that? Most people can. So, enter the plank. I know, I'm never gonna stop nagging you about the plank because your planks are garbage. So, in your plank, we've been over this before. I would highly encourage you to go back and check it out. I'll go from this position. Here's the thing that a lot of people do when I tell them to tuck their navel into their spine. Can you see how that would not be good for any of your lifts, right? What you want to do is, again, like I mentioned in the plank video, protract, depress, and then bias into a posterior tilt with your pelvis. And I don't know if you can tell, but I started shaking, right? And so I'm not trying to round this to create that posterior tilt. I'm using my lower abdominals and my glutes to make that happen. And I'm also keeping my knees straight. So it takes a lot of body awareness to be able to feel when you're cheating. There are ways that you can, like little tricks or whatever that I use with my clients to figure out whether or not they're actually doing that. But the easiest way for you to figure out whether or not you're doing that is to stop bullshitting yourself. Like, if it feels easy, if you're like, man, that plank really hurt my wrist, I guess my wrists are weak. No, you're fucking planking like garbage. You have to support your weight with your shoulder girdle. Otherwise, yeah, your whole entire body is pushing into your wrist, and that's probably not very comfortable. So, same thing with side planks. If you feel like there's like, that hurts my shoulder. Yeah, you're hanging your body in your shoulder. Use your motherfucking lats to push yourself away. And so these are all very rudimentary, very basic concepts that people never master because they're fucking boring. So they run over to the barbell and just start fucking squatting their life away and wonder like why their shoulders hurt. It must be the barbell's fault, right? No, you have to spend some time getting these lazy motherfucking muscles engaged, right? Your glutes, your low abs. Even if you just do a few really good planks for like 10 to 20 seconds, that alone is gonna help save your shoulder joint. Now, do I do stuff specifically for my shoulders? Yeah, because they feel tight and they like it, right? So any kind of circular motion, so you've probably seen like dislocates or up and overs. I'm gonna go over that with a little more detail in the next Fix Your Shitty movement about shoulders, but I really want to impress upon you the importance of bracing. Bracing is not this. That's not bracing. You see how that's not neutral? Bracing is expanding laterally and into your lower back and not utilizing your breath to do that. So I'm bracing and I'm still talking. And now I'm going to take a little sip of air. See how my belly still didn't stick out? Yeah, because I'm trying to keep this neutral, right? I'm trying to keep my pelvis as flat as possible. So drills that are butchered for bracing, bird dog is probably my favorite. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do bird dog well in a gym. That goes for you trainers, especially you, because you're the ones teaching this shit. So, how many of you see this shit? Do you want to put a barbell on this? Oh my God, my core is so strong. No, you don't want to put a barbell on that at all. So what you should do is get into this position with your toes curl, pull your abs up and in, protract, depress, keep those elbows straight, and then just hover your knees up a teensy little bit. And there, you should feel some bracing. And that's actually a lot more similar to what you're going to do in a squat or a deadlift anyway, right? Because you're in like a flexed position. So if you're doing these movements like the plank and stuff, and they feel super easy and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so strong. No, you're half-assing it or doing it wrong altogether. It is up to you to find the tension that you're looking for, create it in your body when you don't have anything else to do, you don't have 300 pounds on your back or whatever. Find it, really try to work on getting those muscles engaged, your lats, all that shit, and ask yourself, are you doing this? Because if you are, you can do all the book openers and pull aparts and plate jerk offs you want. Your shoulders are fucked. They're fucked because you don't know how to stabilize your shoulder joint. You don't know how to use your lats. And until you can figure out how to do that, dead shoulder walking. So go back and watch the plank video. Go back and watch deadlift, lats. I put those in that order for a reason. Then watch the overhead one if you haven't already, because the next Fix Your Shitty movement, I am gonna get into bracing. And I know, what a bummer, no one wants to talk about it, but it is the single most important thing you can do to save your extremities, your lower back, your neck, because until you can get your spine moving fluidly and then use your muscles on command to stabilize it, do you really want to put a barbell on that? My name's Karis, it's Fix Your Shitty Movement. I will see you next week.